Russia, all in one. So all of those countries can fit into Africa. And in wherever you may live, you must imagine that, or you must know that you only have to drive a few hundred yards or a few miles to get to very, very different habitat types. Interesting, a snake that shed its skin. I'm trying to see, it looks like it could have been a... they're not keeled scales. I thought it might have been a juvenile boomslang, because here's the head. Unfortunately, when it peeled its skin off, the head has become part of the rest of the body. It's all stuck together. But there I can see an eye socket just here. On the tip of my finger you can actually see the eye. Believe it or not, that's the upper eyelid. Snakes have transparent eyelids. They don't have the membrane that some things have, that when the eye is open. Okay, so snakes don't close their eyes. Their eyes are permanently closed, but the upper eyelid is transparent, so that it forms a protective barrier against the eye. It's quite an amazing thing. It's almost like a contact lens built into their skin, because they can't close their eyes, and they don't have like a nictitating membrane or anything. So to retain moisture in the eye, and also to prevent things from damaging the eye, nature's fused the upper eyelid with the lower eyelid at the bottom, and gave them a transparent eyelid. And there's some lizards that have the same. Little skinks that are called snake-eyed skinks because of it. Tarzan movies, I think it was all done in studios anyway. I mean the original old Tarzan movie. But then again, you know, Kenya, Tanzania, especially Kenya, where a lot of like Mogumbo, what was that John Wayne movie? And then there was the African Queen, and a bunch of those lovely old movies from Kenya. Different habitat entirely. In fact, I live in the Timbavati, which is only a few miles north of here. Completely different terrain, different habitat, different grasses, mostly different trees. It's almost like the northern limit. These very, very pale green that are now starting to turn a little bit brown, especially these two straight in front of us, and even those further back. I think I can count on one hand the silver cluster leaf terminalias that I've got up in the Timbavati, and from there's another terminalia species that takes over. It's called Terminalia prinoides, the purple pod cluster leaf. So quite unique, this little area of the Sabi Sand. If we were to go to the southern area of the Sabi Sand, we would probably find, not probably, because I've lived there so I know, we would find a completely different habitat type. So you can't imagine, or you can't believe that, or you can't think for a minute that what you see in a movie from one tiny little patch of Africa is what you're going to expect. It's like looking at the Adirondacks and expecting that all of North America is like the Adirondacks, or the Southern California desert or the chaparral of California. And you have to imagine that me thinking that the whole of North America is like the chaparral, or the whole of North America is like the Southern California desert with Joshua trees. And so very, very different habitat right throughout Africa. Sorry, I'm just trying to save a spider. It's flying away right now. Actually, it just flew away, or it ballooned. Sent out a strand of silk and it ballooned away from me. I wanted to see what spider it was. I think Nikki had a question. Excuse me a sec. I get a little bit too carried away with things. Sorry, did you say you had a question? That is a very, very interesting question from Ellen in Illinois. Hello, Ellen. I think I know which Ellen in Illinois this is. Ellen's asking, is there a way to tell whether a snake is venomous? Not poisonous, by the way. Snakes are not poisonous, they're venomous. I love to emphasize that point. I don't know whether I'm correct or not, and it is perhaps semantics, but Ellen is asking if you can tell whether a snake is venomous or not by the shape of the eye, or by the eye, or is there another way, if there's any other way to tell whether a snake is venomous or not. I think, Ellen, first of all, well, we're going to stop here and have a look at some of these impala that are around here and see what they're up to. They're quite relaxed while I chat to you about venomous snakes, but not poisonous snakes. I think if you don't know snakes, I wouldn't say treat them all as venomous. I wouldn't say that, because if I said that, then you'd find people killing non-venomous snakes, because somehow there's something about people that if it's venomous they want to kill it, if it's not they want to leave it. There's no reason to kill any snake, really. There are always, I think, no matter where you live, there are always a number of people that will be willing to come and remove a snake from your house or from your garden or wherever you find it and relocate it rather than kill it. They are the most beneficial creatures. And in fact, with burgeoning human populations, there are going to be, and there is already in some places, even here in South Africa, exploding populations of rodents, and of course with all of them come disease. And one of the things that really are exclusive rodent feeders are a number of snake species. We have a huge problem here in South Africa in some of our poorer communities, where the government doesn't really spend too much time and money on service, to what we call service delivery, running water, flushing toilets, and that sort of thing. What do we call them? Settlements, impromptu, unplanned settlements. Well, whatever. The thing is that the rodent population is exploding in these areas, and they've tried to introduce owls into these areas to deal with the rodents, but unfortunately owls, in African mythology and in African law, owls are really bad things. So as Westerners, we want to sort of say, well, not Westerners, but from a point of view of an ecological standpoint, put owls in the area, they'll catch the rodents at night. But unfortunately there's this mindset of local people that owls are bad, so they're likely to kill the owls, or they have been. And so it's the same thing with snakes. Little African people are deathly afraid of snakes, and every snake is venomous, so every snake gets killed. And of course that just benefits the rodents, really. So in a sense, I would suggest that treat any snake with respect, whether it is venomous or not, but not that you should treat it as venomous. We all have smartphones, we all have the ability to take pictures of things now. It's incredible how the social media and everything else has blossomed. And if a snake is in a house, or if a snake is somewhere where it shouldn't be, if you can get a photograph of it, or if you can get somebody to come and take it away, it's always best to do so, rather than try and do something about it. There aren't really any snakes that you can say with a very strict rule that a snake that looks a certain way is a venomous snake, or a snake that... there was a thing that I heard once, that vertical stripes or stripes running, parallel stripes running along the body mean one thing, and or rather perpendicular stripes mean another. But there are always going to be exceptions to those rules. There's the king snake and the coral snake. There are snakes that have stripes that are venomous, and snakes that have very, very similar stripes that are not venomous. So I don't think there's anything that you can do that you can look at a snake and you say, well, it is venomous or not. The only thing you can do is familiarize yourself with the snakes that occur in your area and what they look like. That's the best advice that I think I can give you, is that wherever you may live, and some places have more venomous snakes than others. I mean, down there in Florida and in the US, and you've got a host of things like cottonmouths and rattlers, and not to mention a lot of non-venomous snakes that can be dangerous, like the feral Burmese and African pythons that have been released into the Everglades. So become familiar with those snakes that can be a problem. It's like spiders, really, because there are only a handful of the thousands of different types of spiders that occur here. There is only a handful of spiders that really have any medical importance as far as humans are concerned. And so if you familiarize yourself with just that handful of spiders that you need to know about, then you don't need to know about all those other hundreds of species that are not venomous that you don't need to worry about. And it's kind of the same thing with snakes. For every venomous snake that you find, you might find 10 or 50 snakes that are not venomous. But in any given area, you might find that you're going to have more than one venomous snake, but it's not going to be many. They're not going to be loads that it can be so confusing. And so the best thing would be to know which snakes occur in your area and how to deal with them. And also, if you are very concerned about snakes, before you even find a snake, find out from your local zoo, from your local, well, especially your local zoo and your local animal control center, who are the people that go out and collect reptiles, the herpetologists, the snake catchers, and get their numbers so that when you do have a problem, you can call in somebody without even having to deal with the problem yourself. Because essentially, if you don't know what you're doing, please don't handle snakes, because, well, that's where mistakes happen, and that's where a lot of accidents have happened. So, let's carry on. A report from scientists that believe that once upon a time all snakes were venomous, and that over time things have changed, that some snakes haven't needed the venom. I don't know, I can't comment on that, Scott. When I look at the way different snakes have, or what they are now, I can't tell where they came from in terms of their evolution, and that the venom becomes weak. But the problem is, there are so many snakes out there that are non-venomous, that have different methods of killing, that do not even have venom. They don't even have the fangs, or there's that impala with the white spot on her shoulder. We've seen her before in this herd out here near Sandy Patch. She's a really unique impala. Tiny little white spot on her shoulder blades. Scott, I'd really like to look into that further, but I don't know where there. Now that she's bending down, you can see it again. I really don't know how to respond to that, since I don't know anything about it. When you look at the constrictors, for a start, that don't even have teeth to deliver venom. I know, hard to comment on something. It's the first time I've ever heard a theory like that. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a zoologist, I'm not an academic. All I can say is that it's not that far from the realm of possibility. However, when I look at what snakes we have in this day and age in the world that we live in today, that might be a lot different from the snakes that existed a couple of million years ago, where maybe they did all have. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's the egg eater, which doesn't even have teeth. It's a toothless snake. Instead of teeth, it has a ridge of serrations on the spine that when it swallows an egg, its body and its muscles are able to constrict that egg, but as it swallows it, there's a ridge on the inside of the spine that actually cuts through the bird's egg that the snake is eating to release the contents, and then the snake regurgitates the shell. Can't imagine that egg eaters ever even had venom, let alone teeth. But then, you know, maybe teeth became vestigial, and maybe the venom glands became vestigial, and maybe the whole concept of constricting the prey, like the pythons and the other constrictors, maybe they evolved, or they developed this ability to constrict because their venom was becoming ineffective. It's a very interesting concept, and I'd really like to look into it further. Interesting question coming in from North Carolina. Hello, Gene. The hognose snake. I am aware of the hognose snake. Gene is saying that there's the hognose snake that they have, that when threatened it plays dead, and it turns upside down and opens its mouth and plays dead, goes into a stupor, goes into a state of, well, it's playing possum, I guess. Gene wants to know if we have any snakes here that do that. We do, indeed, actually. We have, funnily enough, we have a venomous snake, one of the cobra family, and the leopard. A snake we call the wrinkles. In fact, I need to show you a picture of it, because it's all one thing talking about things, but if I can actually show you, give you an idea of what it looks like. The wrinkles is one of our cobras. It's also a spitting snake. Now the wrinkles is famous for doing that. We do have one or two others. We have another snake called a mole snake. Wrinkles is one of our cobras. It's also a spitting snake. Now the wrinkles is famous for doing that. We do have one or two others. We have another snake called a mole snake. The mole snake also plays dead, but the mole snake isn't a very venomous, well, it's not venomous at all. The mole snake is just an aggressive.
Start and end your day on safari.
Welcome back, everyone, and I'm glad that we managed. Welcome back, everyone, and I'm glad that we managed to sort things out. We have had a technical.
Thank you very much. Apologies and welcome back. Alex is still busy fine-tuning whatever the problem was from all the way in Moscow, Russia. An astounding thought, I find. No. Difficult to decide what to do. We're going to carry on driving through this area. It really is a beautiful area, and we'll see what we can find. I've probably seen something in a tree back there. No. And as we drove into Arathusa this afternoon, just an update or a reflection, we did see a cheetah, I think it was 3 days ago. And it was here on Arathusa that we saw it, and we drove past the point where we saw that cheetah in the morning with its duiker kill. There's been no further sign or no knowledge of where that cheetah has gone. So Sadly, no updates for you on that animal, but what I will say is hopefully it'll be back for a visit sometime soon, and let's hope it doesn't take another 5 months of broadcasting before we show you one. Well, there's a beautiful bird. I'll try. Oh, there's one on the ground, Romeo. Maybe it's a bit better. And this bird you're looking at is called the yellow-billed hornbill, and very comical looking bird. They spend a lot of time on the ground feeding, looking for insects, and that is exactly what this individual is doing now. So let's keep an eye on it and see what it can catch. It will feed on prey of varying sizes, from very small ants and grasshoppers to larger chameleons, maybe even baby birds if it gets the opportunity. So it's a carnivore, not a fruit eater, predominantly. Oh, it found something very small and bite-sized there. The next one's in a good spot now, Romeo. Great work on camera there, Romeo. He was poised and ready for it to take off, and did a good job following it down to the ground. Where to now? We'll continue doing some hunting. Oh! What have you found there? It appeared like it may have been breaking open some soil to possibly gain access to some termites, I would guess. But you can see there how it's using its beak as kind of a battering ram to loosen up the soil and nibble on whatever grubs or ants it can find just below the surface level of the sand there. And judging by the frequency of its mouthfuls, it must be feeding on ants or termites.
Didn't expect that one.
It didn't seem like it was going to fly off. It appeared to be really enjoying itself, whatever it was feeding on there. Okay, well, we'll leave them to it. Sorry, Nick, you go again. Just got a question through from Remay on Twitter. Good afternoon. Remay is interested to know whether hornbills will stash their meals like some other birds do. And not that I'm aware of, Remay, so not as far as I'm aware. I've only ever seen them carrying food to nests where they'll feed the individual that's either incubating, which would be the female, and the chicks. But other than that, I've never seen them stashing food. There were some hyena tracks over there that got me excited. I thought we were back on the trail of a leopard. Sadly, she veered off to the north and west, out of our jurisdiction. Just got a question through from Lynn on Twitter. Afternoon, Lynn. Lynn's interested to know what birds mate for life. And to be honest, it's almost fair to say the majority of birds that you see are monogamous and will pair for life. Of monogamous birds, and in this area it's the majority of birds, you could almost say, that are monogamous. Well, myself and Romeo are going to continue exploring this area that is less well known to us, and let's catch up with Mark and see what he's been up to for the last while.
Welcome back to Djuma, and an irresistible shot. I know that we don't have the vulture very clear in the shot, but I couldn't resist getting the moon with the vulture, and we've actually got the tree grasping the moon. I want to move an inch forward. Now, I can't tell you whether the vulture is here for any other reason than the temperatures have been quite cool today. There have been no thermals, and without the thermals, it takes a lot of energy for a vulture to be able to fly. And so it could very well be that he's just hanging about. Now, there has been a vulture on Gallagher Shortcut, and on the other shortcut, Ephraim Shortcut, off of Gallagher Shortcut. We're not far from the vulture's nest, actually. The old vulture's nest down the Mawati River, although I haven't seen them on the nest of late. We need to maybe look at that a little closer. And it might just be the mate of that one who's sitting, and this one's got to sleep on the couch for the time being. This being the couch, or any other tree it finds itself at. repaint this picture. Trying to get it so that it looks like that. Welcome to Africa. So I think it's just a vulture that's hanging about here for the last few days. One that we've seen around in the last few evenings, and quite typically it's just finding a roosting spot. We've also got the waxing moon rising, and it's only a few days, maybe 4 days away. 4 or 5 days away from full, not even 4. Waxing gibbous moon. And below all of this, totally nonplussed, is it's the planet's, it's Earth's tallest mammal, the tallest animal you will ever see. It's almost like a mammal dinosaur. And quite a magnificent one. And someone who we've met already quite recently. He left the property only yesterday, I think. I think it was yesterday or the day before. We watched him plod off beyond Sydney's dam, going north into Manyaleti even. And well, he missed us so much he's come back again. I think it's the same one. So let's edge a little bit closer to him. We'll leave this vulture with its moon. I know that's hard to do though. Really a beautiful shot. I need to maybe just try and get a photo of it. While you're watching the giraffe. Didn't even think of taking a photograph of this vulture in the moon, because I expect some of you might get a screenshot. Might. Well, I guess that's not going to happen, is it? Vulture just decided to fly away. Didn't like me getting the camera out at all. No problem. I had a makoti here in this tree with the moon behind it, and then we had that twig underneath. But you're welcome to join me here. Okay, copy. He's quite good for us. Mejan info.
Oh, Phuket.
Naman na Phuket.
Parang Puna.
Utirakas.
Yeah.
Okay. How you, Ryan? Very good, thanks. Beautiful. Up here around to Buffelshoek perhaps. Yeah. Yes, there's that patch on his neck is very similar to the patch on the neck of the other giraffe. He's smaller than the other giraffe. The other giraffe was a lot bigger. We can do the size comparison thing again, but it might take a while. Oh. A lot of francolins are complaining down in the riverbed, by the way. A lot of commotion. See that other big boy that we were looking at the other day. The patch of the scar was higher up on the neck, further to the back of the neck, if I'm not mistaken. But his mane had a break in it where there was another scar that almost saddled his neck. Oh, there's a commotion going on behind that very big jackalberry where Karula's been. We need to go and have a look. We're going to have to come back to see him. He's a smaller giraffe. I'll park in the same place if I can, and I'll walk over there and do a size comparison thing again. Or we can come back to see him shortly, and then I'll get it. But it's a different giraffe, it's not the same one. Definitely not. He's half the size. That other giraffe was a monster. This one's a good few feet shorter. Although he's a big bull, he's also got two asymmetric. His ossicones, his horns, are shaped funny. One sort of, they're not perfectly symmetric. They're not the same. Of course, it might be a little bit late now to see what the commotion is. Oh, sorry. Tree stumps. A lot of francolins here that could have been the ones that were complaining so much. Vultures, more vultures. There is something happening here, but what it is isn't quite clear, because there was a sound of the francolins getting quite edgy. Two more giraffe. Giraffe. No, sorry. These are birds with long necks. They're called vultures. Giraffe are those other things with long necks. They walk around on four legs. Sorry, I'm getting confused. I'm still new at this. Both of them facing the other way. down in the bottom of the riverbed, so ordinarily it's quite becomes cooler down here, and the scents and smells should be quite strong. I'm not picking anything up yet, but I think if we were playing a game of hot and cold, I'd be getting cold right now. Both, we need to look, sorry, Nikki's asking, are we looking on the trees or are we looking on the ground? We look both, a little bit of both. We are looking everywhere for any other signs. Unusual in that there aren't any other scavenging birds like bateleur or tawny eagles. Now, vultures are incapable of grasping with their talons, their feet. They can close them, but they can't really carry things. There are very few vultures that can. One of the only vultures that can carry anything is a vulture known as a lammergeier, or the bearded vulture, and they carry parts of carcasses so that they can drop them down a cliff face onto rocks so that the bones break and they can get to the marrow. Other than that, vultures tend to mostly only congregate when they can get to a carcass on the ground, especially white-backed vultures. Hooded vultures are a little bit different. See, basically a vulture can't really grasp hold of a branch and then tear at food in a tree the way an eagle can, and that is why there are a couple of opportunistic eagles. Oh wait, before we carry on, they're flying, coming into this tree. Green woodahpoos, very quiet though for green woodahpoos and starling. Well, let's try up on the road itself. See, a leopard kill on the ground would attract normal vultures. A leopard kill in a tree, on the other hand, would be more attractive to hooded vultures, tawny eagles and bateleur snake eagles. I think they're now called short-tailed snake eagles. Because they're able to feed on a carcass in a tree. not seeing any tracks. Well, old hyena tracks. Conundrum. It could also be anything between where those two vultures are and where the other vulture was, and add another couple hundred meters and do a radius of that. Could be anywhere. But there is something that is attracting these birds. But with darkness falling, I think we'll just sit with this big boy for a while. This will be a good angle to get one of those comparison shots. If he moves off, could take too long. It's hard to now guess where anything might have taken place that's attracted these vultures, if anything at all. Could be that they were on something. Far away, and they've decided to come and roost here. One of those things. Sometimes, from the moment I saw the first one, right up until now, my heart's been beating, going around every bush and having a look where we were looking, hoping that maybe we're going to find something. Hello, Sarah. Oh. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
So that was game driver. Radio. Radio. Mad because something was pressing on it. Sarah, hi Sarah, what kind of parrots do we get here? We only get brown-headed parrots here in the Kruger area. Elsewhere in South Africa there are the endangered Cape parrot from down in the Cape. And the Myers parrot. He's got a bit of a wrinkled face, this old boy. sky's getting better every minute. But yes, definitely a different giraffe. The big bull where VM is pointing the camera right now, there's sort of that patch of spots around the shoulder area. That other one had much lighter patches. The scar was much higher up and towards the back of the neck, and he had that break in his mane. He had a longer mane. He had different scars on his rump. This is a magnificent bull, make no mistake. Very handsome fella. The giraffe sunset. Help get rid of ticks a little bit. Giraffe often walk over things like that. Get under their armpits, under their legs. It's quite interesting. Sometimes they'll stand over a bush and they'll have a Okay, I don't know how that can happen. Here, I haven't changed anything here. It's all the same. Tex and come in. Tex, which fire break are you talking? Talking about some lion on a fire break. I was hoping or getting excited that maybe they were on one of the fire breaks like a wait, that radio transmission. I think Grace was asking why do animals chew the cud? Interesting question, Grace. I think the primary reason for chewing the cud is to be able to get as much out of the plant matter that they can. Because especially being a large mammal and considering that they have an entirely vegetative that it becomes important that they obtain all the nutrients from the food that they take in. You see, we look at elephants that don't chew the cud. Elephants only digest not even a third, less than a third of the material that they take in. It's somehow, because they're able to continually eat the way that they do, they manage to survive very well. On the ruminants, and the ability to chew the cud is because matter and the cells of plants, the nutrients in plants are held within the structure of the plant. And the structure of the plant is made up of this plant cell of this, and the cell wall of a plant cell is something called cellulose. And none of these animals can digest it. They can't break it down. They can digest what they've crushed the first time they chew it, but then because so much is still remaining in the food that they've taken in, nature's given them a way to bring that food up from the stomach to chew it again, to break down that plant matter even more, so it can go to the second stomach and then the third and fourth and so on. So I think being an animal that chews the cud is all about being able to get as much out of their plant diet as they possibly can. Now that he's hiding away around the corner, I'm going to go and stand. I think I'm going to be able to stand more or less where he was. standing here somewhere. I think, yeah, he was feeding on that catchwood. That was the best place to stop. I think we were in the same place here when he was there, weren't we? Pretty much. Or was it that tree? Anyways, maybe that'll work. I don't know if it will. We stopped and started a few times. But he's only this big. I'm going to leave him be. It's getting dark. It's time to leave the boy alone. Giraffe's not something we want to be putting lights on at all. Good night, Mr. G. Thank you very much for your company. Oh, hold on, hang on. Oh. I suppose we could have got a little bit of the glow. That might be nice, since he's stopped and he's obliging to have a little of a glow of sunset and the silhouette of a giraffe against the African sky. Move your head, please. Looks like you've got your head in a tree. Dam actually. We might pick him up on the camera sometime in a little while because he's heading that way. Dam cam back up again. Oh no, might make his way there at some point. Now starts our evening drive. We are able to utilize the next hour or so with some lights on. We're going to be finding. We're going to be able to put our lights on and see if we can find any of the nocturnal animals starting to come out this evening. Sky is cleared completely. That's nice. Well, no, not completely. A little bit of cloud still in the west, but the moon's clearing up. I'm sorry to have missed it yesterday, and I should have, but we had the moon right next to Jupiter last. night. Now and then, a little bit separated. As it gets a little bit darker, we'll be able to point them out to you, the waxing moon and Jupiter quite high in the sky. It'll be another month before we're going to have the moon next to Jupiter again. But it will be next month, this time, just before the main new moon, full moon. End of April. Jupiter's not going anywhere for a while. Very high now. Northeastern sky. Sarah in Paris. And I hope I pronounce it Sarah from Paris. Wanting to know if it is or isn't the same giraffe. Definitely not the same giraffe we had the other day. It's a different bull. But I'm wondering because I think Scotty had a giraffe bull the other day, and then that giraffe saw another giraffe and turned around and went the opposite direction because he didn't want a confrontation. So I'm wondering if he's the other bull that was in the area a few days, even more, maybe a week ago, or maybe not, about a week ago, not sure. Somewhere around Treehouse Dam, I think it was. But I don't think I've seen this bull before. I would have remembered those horns that are not straight. Does the giraffe have teeth? Jerry in Maryland. Never know how to pronounce Maryland. Baltimore way. Jerry, the giraffe do have teeth. Of course, they need teeth to be able to masticate the vegetation that they eat, to be able to chew it. So they have molars. What they don't have are upper teeth, upper front teeth, upper incisors or canines for that matter. A lot of the herbivores don't have upper. But a number of them don't. But if we had to find a giraffe skull, you'll find that the pellet ends without teeth, and that it is to facilitate their method of feeding, which is to wrap their tongue around a branch and push it up against the palate, and using the tongue and the palate and the upper lip, which is almost prehensile too. I didn't mention the tongue is also semi-prehensile. For them to be able to strip all of the leaves off of a branch and then chew them with their molar sets that they have at the back of their jaw. What are the reasons why giraffe have such well, no, it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing, really. The thorns and the spines that we find on the trees are a result of herbivores, browsers, feeding extensively on those types of so long throughout history. that those very trees have developed physical defenses, this physical mechanism to discourage being overutilized, to discourage animals from staying there too long and feeding on too many of their leaves, because a tree can't afford to lose too much. I mean, you have to think about it. What is stopping an animal? A browser. Browsers are animals that eat leaves, by the way. Living organisms. They move, they live, they grow. They're not entirely innocent, and they're not either. So over millennia, trees that were used quite extensively started getting sharper tips to the leaves, and eventually the leaves got sharper and sharper tips, and then eventually, if you look at this acacia next to me, the leaves actually turn into thorns. Not all of the leaves, only some of the leaves. So certain plant species eventually developed these modified leaves that we now see as thorns. And here next to it, this is a buffalo thorn. Also modified leaflets, leaves. There's a spike thorn. That's a different one, that one over there. That's got modified branches that became thorns, but they're called spines because they branch. They're not leaves. Anyways, it's getting complicated. Basically what it is the plants that were the tastiest plants had to create, or had to adapt. That's what it is. They merely had to adapt to a greater diversity of animals that were browsing on them. And so they develop these physical defenses. However, you see, nothing in nature is static. Nothing in nature stays the same forever. Everything is constantly moving and constantly changing, constantly adapting to the changes that are wrought. About differences in climate and differences in rainfall and differences in temperature. And so in that constantly changing environment, things like giraffe had to develop thicker tongues, and their palates had to be able to withstand the thorns that they were now ingesting. Or stripping, and their lips. It was it is, not was. It is a constantly changing dynamic that is not finished yet, by no means finished, by no means an end to it. What we see is merely this phase of trees and animals in the lifetime of this planet, and it would be very, very interesting to know what would develop, how things would change over time, how much it would develop, because already there are further developments that have taken place in defense, or in trees' defense of overutilization, and they now, not now, but they have developed slowly, modified the tannins and the nutrients and the moisture in their cells, in their bodies. Their bark and their trunk and their branches and their leaves, so that when an animal starts browsing, irrespective of the physical defense that exists on the tree produces chemicals now that discourage the animal from eating too much of it, because the animals tend to ignore the thorns and the spines, and there's not much further that the trees can go after that. Maybe one day they'll inject alkaloids. That there are already plants that have a huge effect on animals' nervous systems. Plants that if animals eat them, they get a nervous system suppressant that stops them from being able to feed, and it can become quite dangerous to them. But here it's mostly tannin. Here it's tannin levels in the leaves that get more concentrated, and the leaves become bitter rather than palatable, and even to some degree poisonous. So interesting things, the way it all works. We find some trees that don't have any thorns. With this magic worry, for example, it's very hard, leathery leaves. Not really much that's going to be feeding on it, because it might be edible, but it's probably quite unpalatable. Probably a very high tannin level already. Plus that kind of hard, leathery leaves. Who wants to eat that? I want to eat the soft, juicy ones that have. Some of the acacias have sugary secretion. They take warfare to a completely different level. Some of the acacia have leaflets that at the base of the leaflets on the petiole, there's a little gland just before the leaflets start forming. And that gland produces a sugary substance that attracts a very particular species of ant. And I've actually been asked recently about ants. I can't remember. I think it was Chris or Sarah, I can't remember. One of the ladies asked me about ants recently, and it's hard to talk about things if we don't see them, but since I'm talking about this, we can't see these ants right now, but they're called cocktail ants, and they love these sugary secretions, and so they build their nests in the acacias that produce these sugary secretions, and they actually help to preserve the acacia. They act as a defense mechanism for the acacia in lieu of these sugary secretions that the acacias provide for them. And the more an animal starts feeding on the acacia, the less the acacia produces the sugar. And because these ants are just so addicted to this, sorry, there's a nightjar in the road, I don't want to disturb it. I don't know what nightjar it is, they're hard to tell. And they're just sitting. Could be a fiery neck nightjar because they sit on the ground more than the others. Excuse me, child. Switch off all my lights. There we go. It just flew away. If you leave the lights on, they can't really see where they're flying, and they can fly into a tree. So when an animal starts feeding on an acacia that has these ants that are having the symbiotic relationship with the tree, the ants get agitated. And they start giving off a danger pheromone. They produce this little milky substance that stings. They also bite. And so a giraffe or another animal doesn't really stick around for too long when the acacias, or rather when the ants from the acacias start attacking their mouths, biting them on everywhere, so they move on before the tree even has to employ any other sort of chemical or physical warfare. Interestingly though, when trees are being fed on and they are using chemical warfare, in other words, they're producing tannins, they're increasing their tannin levels by hundreds of percent. And it's sometimes 4 times the amount of tannins pushing into their leaves that make their leaves so bitter. There's a byproduct, there's a gas. That is emitted, they're given off by the leaves. It's almost like a danger pheromone that is given off by impala when there's a leopard hunting them. And these trees are able to communicate in that way, in that the gas, I think it's an ethyl gas, I can't remember the exact name of it, but other trees breathe it in and it stimulates their defense mechanism before even an animal starts. Feeding on it. Conundrum. Which way should we go? Okay. There is also a communication network, I believe. I've read something recently that's a recent discovery. Mycorrhizae, the fungi that live amongst the roots of trees that send messages through a forest. From tree to tree. I don't know how that works yet. I still got to look up on that. Still got to read up on that particular development. In the life of trees. Grow a tree. Get a seed, grow a tree. You cannot believe what it does for the soul. Especially if you're the one that starts it from seed, if you're able to. Because no matter what tree it is, invariably it will outlive you. But the concept for me, growing baobabs, and I don't know how many of the baobabs I've ever germinated are still alive, or any of the trees. I've germinated so many trees, but I got such a kick out of being able to start a life that has the potential to live for thousands or more years. it's a special feeling, especially nursing a tree, the sapling. Oh, termites, look at that. Because it's dark, there's no sunshine. Interesting. I wonder if they're getting ready to release. I wonder if they're picking up that. They must be picking up something. Atmospheric pressure or very seldom exposed like this. They never come out. Well, no, not never. But the only time that they'll be out like this is on approaching thunderstorms where they're going to be releasing their reproductive. So you get a lot of them that will come out and try and protect. I'm just looking, those look like snouted termites, not macrotermes. I need to take a quick closer look. Please excuse me a sec. Can you see them shaking their heads?
Yes.
I'm going to put that light on. Quite interestingly though, for a minute I thought these were termites that are known as the snouted termites. What's in my way? Oh, it's this. It's giving me a shadow across my face, but that's okay. I'm just going to move forward. These are the pinnacle mound termites. These are the great termites that we see. All the big termite mounds are the ones that are built by these termites over decades, if not sometimes centuries. And 360 days of the year they are encased in that termite colony, and it's quite crucial to control the temperature and to control the humidity. It's almost like one living body that a breach in that can affect the entire colony. And there are only certain times in the wet months, in the summer season, when these termites release their reproductive caste, because there are different castes within the termite colony. You get basic workers and some workers that have heavier heads that actually act as soldiers. And most of the termites that are on the mouth of this opening, it's a chimney, it's a breather, it's a chimney that they've opened up. Most of them are soldiers. They've got very big heads, very big jaws, and they're there to protect from any invasion by anything. Now, as I got closer, I breathed onto the termites, and I don't know if you could see it clearly enough that they were hammering their heads against the side wall, and it actually becomes audible when you're out walking without vehicles and things, where you've got this beautiful silence that surrounds you sometimes in the bush, where you can hear every tiny little thing. When you walk near a pinnacle mound termite and they are close to the surface, you can actually hear them drumming the warning, and you can hear how that rattles through the colony to warn the colony that there's potential danger. And all I did was I bent a little bit closer, and they picked up my carbon dioxide, the breath that was coming out of me, and they reacted to that. Ordinarily, they wouldn't be that exposed, and maybe we need to come by this termite colony again, or maybe I'll keep my eyes open. I have no doubt that every other colony within this area will be doing almost exactly the same thing. So we will have a look. We're going to be heading out towards Buffelshoek Dam as we move on towards home and the end of drive. But interesting. We're supposed to have had thunderstorms this afternoon, only because the weatherman said so, more than anything else. And we've had some wet weather, we've had some humidity. So we'll see what happens. Very interesting though. The sky is actually clear, moon's out. There's the moon and Jupiter now, while I'm plugging my earphone in. If I can find the hole. Story of my life. A little bit of cloud buildup. Isn't it my luck that the feed is jumpy when I'm getting all talkative and all, telling you wonderful stories about the trees and doubt whether anybody follow the word. haziness is still quite high in the western sky too. I wonder what Scott's up to this evening. Oh yeah, I wonder where he's been. That's fine. I think Scott did go over to Arathusa for a bit. I'm not too sure where he is now, but let's hand over to Scott and see what he's up to.
Well, the timing couldn't have been any better. We've upon these two bush babies, which you can see moving through the trees here. I'm just going to try and steady the torch. And that could well be them alarm calling in this tree. I think it is their call, and I'm not sure what would have distressed them in there. It's very thick in here. Just going to show. Turn around and see if there's another one jumping around here somewhere. Well, there's still one nestled in between the branches there. And let's keep an eye on it. Let's hope it'll come out into a clearer spot for us. Although I can see another one. Oh, there we go. There's another one moving around. Oops, they just move so quickly. But it is indeed them that is alarm calling, and I wonder what they can see. Also just communicating between themselves. There seems to be quite a few here, so they could be having some kind of a dispute. Oh, there's a nice one, Jason. There's a whole bunch of them. I've probably seen 4 or 5 different sets of eyes. And they've got the most incredible ability to be able to leap around in the dark from branch to branch. What to do. Just going to try and get a different angle here. Possibly there's a snake in there. But very difficult to say. You can certainly hear them making a serious racket, and there must be something in here disturbing them. If not a snake, who knows, maybe a small carnivorous predator like, or nocturnal predator like a genet. It could be distressing them. Try creep forward again and see if we can't get another angle. But seriously, other than these bush baby that we've just stumbled upon literally as we went live, we've had a very quiet, just going to actually reverse to our last, but we've had a very quiet afternoon. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, all that noise you can hear is all from the bush babies, and there's quite a few of them in here having some kind of a gathering. but it's sadly just so thick and they're so small that it's making it difficult to show you. Maybe there's a gap for one. Not easy, but at least you got another very, very brief glimpse of these bush babies who are not happy with something here. I don't want to drive in there and distress them too much, so we will leave them to it because I fear that we are not going to be able to get better angles. They're in a very thick cluster of guarris and tambuti trees. It would just be so nice to know what it is that they're alarm calling at. Okay, well, we will continue on. On Twin Dams Road, just north of Elephant Skull Junction. Oh, Jason, quick. Gone. Oh, she's gone.
Wait a second.
Oh, still popping about there.
It's branching away.
Here we go, Jason. It's coming onto a good tree here. Wow, look at it go. And who knows how far it jumped there, but it certainly jumped straight out of shot.
There
There we go. It could just be a territorial dispute, who knows, or potentially there is some kind of a threat. I haven't viewed many bush babies in my time. The 3.5 years that I did spend in the Sabi Sands, I was in a different area to this, and at that stage there weren't nearly as many bush babies as we've seen here in the north. So I don't know too much about them. Anyway, what I do know is that we are going to carry on now and see what else we can find. So myself and Jason spent some time following another set of female leopard tracks close to the Arathusa airstrip, but didn't come up with anything. And headed across back to Djuma where we are now. And the bush babies are the first thing we've seen. Happy to hear that Mark managed to find an interesting sighting of some termites doing some housekeeping or renovations, it sounded like. So glad that you got to see that, because that's something interesting that we don't often get to show you. we also earlier did follow up on Djuma, and he crossed out of our property to the south, so we headed back to the last area where we saw him this morning and followed his tracks.
That's it. There, right? Night.
Beautiful. So this is a nightjar, very difficult to tell which one it is. They all look very similar unless you open their wings up and or hear their call. But they're a very interesting bird with, as you can see, a very large eye suited to their nocturnal habits, and their beak, which is tiny, but their mouth opens very, very wide. And you can't see here, but they've also got whisker-like bristles that create a funnel into their mouth to help funnel insects, and they are nocturnal predators and catch a lot of insects on the wing in the dark. So those bristles, whisker-like bristles, help to funnel the prey into their very wide mouth that they can open up. I'm going to switch the lights off now and continue, and I'm going to switch the lights off so it can regain a bit of its vision and therefore not be run over by us. Well spotted, Romeo. Okay, I've just heard a pearl-spotted owlet calling. With a little bit of luck, we're going to be able to find it. It's a very, very small owl. It's calling from somewhere. Over here. Come on, little owl. They're such pretty little birds, and I'd love to show you one.
What? How did you even do that?
Jason, what are you looking at, buddy?
Oh, good, that eye. There it is. Do something about the light now.
So, miraculously, we have managed to find this little pearl-spotted owl. It's situated very high above us. Difficult to get a decent angle on it, but I'm sure he'll look down at us at some stage. Beautiful. We've got such incredible hearing, these owls, and they're big flat face acts as a satellite dish almost to help receive their audio. So their face is almost an extension of their ears, and that allows them to pinpoint prey depending on what side of the facial disc most of the sound is coming from. Wouldn't it be wonderful if it started calling now? It would be very interesting if it did. But it may be a little bit nervous of its current viewers. Also the incredible ability to swivel their head from side to side. Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable here with the spotlight. I found it in a very awkward position. And hard to believe that this tiny bird is fully grown. It is about the size of a tennis ball, and maybe a tennis ball and a half. 1.5 tennis balls would be the size of this little bird. They do also hunt during the day occasionally, so not strictly nocturnal. And interestingly, they do predate on other birds, and I've actually seen one of these small pearl-spotted owls with a laughing dove, a bird of almost the same size as itself.
What do their nests look like?
I don't have a clue, Romeo. I don't have a clue.
Because they're tiny.
It would be very interesting to know. I'm guessing like most owl, although lots of owls, also, well, I suppose some owls just nest in regular nests in the fork of trees, not necessarily in cavities. So it'll be interesting to know which these ones do. I'll be able to have a check in my book. Just sadly now I'm focusing on holding the spotlight.
Is it for you?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
The book and the light is all behind you. Oh. Well, our friend has left, so I can continue with that. Thank you, sir. So, let's have a little bit of a look here and do some research on this little critter. Okay. The pearl-spotted. Most nest holes used are those of woodpeckers, but occasionally use natural cavities. So they do indeed nest in cavities. Well done. And for the viewer who asked earlier, I forgot their name, about birds mating for life, this is another example, as are all the owls on this page. They're all monogamous. So you'll find that with a lot of birds. Sorry, go again. Well done, Jason.
Thanks. I think that was all you. I don't know how you saw that. It looks in that tree.
We didn't, we heard it.
Half an hour.
We got a good sighting of a little owl. And maybe we'll find now a big owl. Mark, I know, did have a large Faroese eagle owl on this road not too long ago, a few days ago, just before he found Mvula, a few seconds after he shut down or the broadcast stopped. But thankfully Nicky just restarted the broadcast and a few of you got to see Mvula. But that would be great to see one of the smallest owls and one of the biggest owls on the same evening. As we continue to drive, I can hear the owl calling again behind us. So obviously it wasn't happy to call with the light on it. It's a bit of stage fright. Sorry, Jason. Just shone the spotlight in Jason's face, so things out of focus for a few minutes. It's just because he's regaining his vision. I wonder if this wasn't the dead tree that Mark saw the owl on. I think it could be. Were you with him, Romeo?
I wasn't.
They are still alive. Sorry, go again. Copy, perfect. Well, very big thanks to all of you for following, and well done to Mark. It sounds like he conducted some very interesting tree talk as well as some interesting insect breakdowns this afternoon, so well done to Mark. He is a maestro with a lot of the finer details out here, and on a quieter afternoon like this where the mammals are few and far between, having a man like him on board is wonderful, because his knowledge really is wonderful. So well done to Mark for pulling that off, and thanks Jason for tagging along with me this afternoon.
I had fun.
Good. And I'm not sure exactly who will be out tomorrow morning, but it'll just be one vehicle. I think it could be me again tomorrow morning, but only one vehicle in the morning, and then as of Thursday we'll be back to 2 vehicles in the morning and afternoon through till Sunday. And I certainly do look forward to tomorrow's adventure. The lion will, I'm hoping, eventually come onto our property. They've been gone for so long that can't help but think it's time for them to come and check up on another area of their property. So that is what I'm hoping for, and anything else of interest. The Ellies have also seemed to disappear, so it'd be great if they came back for a visit, but they've only been gone a few days. The lion have been gone close on a week now. Anyway, time will tell, and until tomorrow's adventure, I hope you all have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where in the world you are, and thanks for tuning in. We'll catch up again in the morning.